Dogman versus Werewolf. Battle for the Midwest continues. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I once saw what might have been two dogmen, or two werewolves, battling in the woods in Wisconsin. Personally, I think what I saw was a werewolf fighting with a dogman, but I'm not sure how I could ever prove such a thing. This happened way back in 1989, and so it's not like I can go back to the site and search for evidence. I'll tell you what I can remember about the incident, and you tell me what you think happened. First of all, I was with my then girlfriend Heather when this all went down. About 5 years after this incident, I married Heather's sister Megan, and so Heather won't speak to either of us anymore. I'll give you what I remember of Heather's side of the story, but there's no way she'd help me write this video. There's just too many years of bad blood that's gone down since then. She might even say it didn't happen just out of spite, so I'm not even going to reach out to her about this. Just know that at the time, we were getting along and we were quite happy with each other. We were walking hand in hand when the situation exploded in our faces. Now this all happened years ago when we took a weekend trip to Alger County in Michigan on the southern shore of Lake Superior. We were walking along a one-lane unlit road called Shot Point Drive when out of what must have been somebody's driveway fell two large, hairy, bear-like animals. They were wrestling and raising a lot of dust as they fell into the dirty ground alongside the road and rolled around onto the blacktop itself. The two were making horrible noises, and it didn't sound like a play fight. This sounded like both of them meant serious business. Each of them seemed to have the termination of the other one in mind, and we took some steps back to avoid getting too close to this vicious battle between two oversized land predators. It was only after both got up on their hind feet, battling in an upright position as bears sometimes do, when we could see, for the first time, that these were not in fact bears at all, but something else entirely. That realization struck at me like a lightning bolt through my heart, and then real thunder and lightning exploded somewhere above us as the skies opened up with a very sudden and completely unexpected downpour. Now, Shot Point Drive over there has nothing on it but trees. It's just a strip of blacktop laid down to make it easier for the folks that live over there to drive home. But all the homes are set way back from the road. In fact, the two hairy man-things had tumbled out of someone's long winding driveway. It was a populated area, but we had no access to any of that population. We had these monster men between us and the locals, so it wasn't like we could ask anyone for help. What we did do was run off the road into the mud and stand behind a big tree, hoping that the two man mountains would focus on each other and not notice me or Heather. Now it was dark, and as the two wrestled, it was hard to tell anything other than that they were hairy, angry, and bear-sized. As I mentioned earlier, though, when they inevitably came unlocked, it was easier to make out the silhouettes and basic coloring of each of the two figures. Well, I'll cut straight to the point. They were both half men, half wolf, upright walking manimals. One had gray fur like a wolf and glowing yellowish-white eyes. The other was more of a brown shade, or at least a warmer gray. His eyes had more of a reddish eye shine, and he seemed to have tattered remains of what might have once been clothing attached to him in various places, like his midsection and wrists. His snout was shorter than the gray one's was as well. When I get to this part of the story, most people ask me if I'm sure I wasn't seeing two bears fighting. When I tell them that the creatures were too thin to be bears, they say they must have been bears with mange. When I point out that the bears in Michigan are black bears, whereas these two were gray and brown, they remind me it was dark out. When I say that both creatures were clearly canine and had all their fur, therefore could not have had mange, they say, well, you saw two large dogs then, end of story. So I'm just going to cut through all that stuff and tell you, these two canines remained upright, even when they backed away from each other. They also maneuvered around each other like UFC fighters, only larger. Also, when they would charge at each other, they were not just fighting with their hand-like paws and their claw-like feet. They were also using their powerful, snapping jaws and their prehistorically large-looking choppers. Both of them seemed to view the other as competition either for food or something, and it was clear that neither one could tolerate the other. Either this was going to end in the termination of one of those creatures, or else one of them was going to have to go far away for a long time. These were two alphas trying to occupy the same space, and nature isn't built to work that way, unfortunately. Sure, maybe we humans can sometimes join together and cooperate, but those creatures we saw were not human. I know I said that one of them seemed to be wearing clothing. Maybe that was a werewolf we were observing, or maybe the cloth wrapped around his body in places was there for some other reason. Maybe it wasn't clothing at all, but something that I couldn't even possibly guess at. Nevertheless, it was that one, the brown one in tatters, who seemed to have the upper hand in this fighting. I saw him pick up a stick and swing it at the gray one, demonstrating that he was at least advanced enough to understand simple tool use. After it rained for a while, I also saw him reach down, grab some mud, and throw it up into the eyes of the big gray dogman, before launching a savage attack directed toward the larger one's exposed and vulnerable midsection. The rain fell harder and harder, with lightning flashes sometimes brightening the scene up to look like noon on a sunny day, followed by deafening booms from the thunder that was attached to each lightning bolt. Heather was telling me we should run away, back the way we came, but that was not the direction we needed to go in. I suppose I was being stubborn, but I had a conviction that this whole thing couldn't last for much longer. I don't know what to say, I just wanted to wait and watch. Yes, I was scared, I admit that. I still have nightmares about the incident to this day, but I also didn't want to run away. I wanted to get back to where we were staying, and that was on the other side of those monsters. So, where the brown one in tattered rags was clever and strong, the larger, longer-snouted gray one was fast and brutally savage. Although the one I saw as a werewolf had the upper hand most of the time, when the gray one I saw as a dogman would strike, he seemed to be causing more damage. The pained cries of the brown werewolf seemed far more desperate than those of the big gray dogman. There was a flurry of activity, both creatures rolling in the mud, tearing huge clumps of fur out of each other. And then, when the lock broke, that dogman snapped viciously and insanely at the other one's throat, causing him to back away. Successful at having created some distance between the two of them, the dogman fled up the same driveway we had seen the two of them roll out of. The brown one, in tatters, dropped to all fours to race into that driveway and out of our sight. We could hear them running and fighting for nearly a minute afterward. As I helped Heather back onto that strip of blacktop, even before we resumed walking toward the hotel. The rain left us following those fighting canine people off to our right. As we continued to walk, the sun came out once again, and the world seemed to return to normal. Heather was really put off by what had happened, so we drove back to where we lived and went to see a movie in town instead. Somehow, our trip that weekend changed our relationship, as she seemed to blame me for what happened. Heather started calling me weird after that, and telling people that my idea of a vacation weekend was to take a trip into the Twilight Zone. I never understood how she could blame me for random things that happened when I was there, but that's the way Heather's brain works. She acted as though I could have known the creatures would be there, but I'm not sure how I could have foretold that. Someone once asked me how they could see something like what I saw. I told them, you should just date a girlfriend who'll blame you if you see one. My philosophy about monsters is that they will show up if it's inconvenient for you. So create situations where it would be bad for a monster to show up, and then they will. Or, not monsters, what's the word that kids use nowadays? Cryptids. If you want to see a cryptid, first you need to really not want to see one. That's what I think. And if that does happen, and you do find yourself face to face with one of these dogmen or werewolves or whatever they may be, my advice would be to hide out, lay low, and wait. Sooner or later they've got to move on, and the storm they brought with them will break eventually. Whatever you do, you don't want to draw attention to yourself if you're witnessing a skirmish in the ongoing battles between these various canine people who seem to be taking the woods back from Sasquatch and bear and cougar. Whatever you do, prioritize your own safety if you witness the conflict between Dogman versus Werewolf. Battle for the Midwest continues. Henry Lee Dogman here with a special announcement. As we all know, the gods of YouTube giveth, and the gods of YouTube taketh away. But in this case they have giveth. What hath they giveth, you asketh? Well, they have giveth you a new way to say thank you to us. They call it Super Thanks, and it's for those who want to help us stay online, but don't want to make monthly payments. You can grant us a one-time payment from $2 up to $50, depending on how generous you feel. It's sort of a way to do a super chat for us channels that don't do live streams. It's become a lot harder for our channel recently, as the algorithm has stopped allowing as many people who aren't already subscribed to even find out about our videos. We can use any help that Providence allows to get us through these dark times, and so we thank whoever at YouTube decided to provide us with this, and any of you kind enough to consider using it. Now, it's time for Bigfoot to bust a rhyme. Biggie? For your nasal congestion, use the neosynephrine. For executive producer, just call on Efren. Please join us in thanking today's executive producer Efren Kalunga for making this episode possible. Efren receives all our perks, including our secret uncensored Dogman stories, far too wild to tell on this channel, and our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available to no one else other than our channel members and PayPal club members who have joined at the $3 level or above. Now here's international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to fill in the rest of the deets. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com. And that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, You need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal Subscribers Club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal Club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.